Hello, everybody, and welcome to the United Stand. I'm here with Fabrizio Romano. Romano, how are you?
All good. Thank you. Hope you too.
Good. Let's get straight into things. We've got quite a few things to ask you today. Obviously, last time you were on the channel, we're talking about potentially similar things, but there might have been some movement, and there's kind of new people as well that are on the scene that we have been linked to. One of them being LEAO from Milan. He was linked to us yesterday in the UK. I don't know if you'd seen, you probably have seen, and apparently that we are interested in him. What are the chances, you would say, obviously it's quite early on, of that happening? Chelsea obviously might be interested, and it could be a large fee for him. What do you think about that regarding Manchester United? Do you think that we could potentially go in for someone like that, like him?
Yes, first of all, LEAO is a fantastic player, so it's normal to see so many links because he's absolutely destroying Serie A. He was the best player in Serie A last season. This season, he's doing great again. And so it's normal to have these links. And what I'm told is that we had these stories, these links to Manchester United because they sent their scouts to follow Rafael LEAO, and not only Rafael LEAO, but also other Milan players in the last few weeks. So Manchester United are monitoring some of these players, not just LEAO, but he's an incredible player, but not the only one playing for Milan. So this is why we had these links. But at the moment, there are no direct contacts to complete this LEAO deal now or in January or in the summer. The situation is still at early stages. It's important to mention on LEAO that I see a lot of rumors around 60, 70 million pounds. This is not the fee to sign Rafael LEAO. AC Milan received a verbal proposal from Chelsea at the end of the market. It was the final weeks of August, and the answer from AC Milan was very clear. They wanted 150 million euros. That is the release clause of Rafael LEAO. So I don't see them selling LEAO in January, first point. And second point, as Paolo Maldini said, they are trying to extend this contract, to sign a new contract, and to change the situation of the release clause. So we have to see, I think, in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks how it will go, the negotiation between LEAO and Milan, if they will be able to sign a new deal with LEAO and what happens with the release clause, or if the situation will stay like this, with the current deal expiring in June 2024. So the situation at the moment is open, but Milan are negotiating for a new contract. Chelsea are still there, as you mentioned. Chelsea were really interested in the summer, but no deal. And so let's see if they will try again in the next summer or not. About Man United, my only doubt is if they want to sign another winger, if they want to spend crazy money on another winger, because after Anthony, and it was a record fee for Ajax and for Eredivisie, now that would be another record fee for Rafael LEAO, for another winger. So it's important to understand if they want to do that after Jadon Sancho too 1 year ago, or if they want to go for a different kind of player and to invest that money maybe on a center striker, because LEAO is always playing on the left and his best position is on the left. So this is why I have some doubts on this story, but it's true that Manchester United scouts were in Italy to monitor Rafael LEAO.
Exactly. It's like we have spent a lot of money on wingers as of late, and I don't know if we would be willing to spend that money again, especially considering the likes of Anthony and Jadon Sancho. Like, they're not doing what we want them to do, but they are gradually improving. So it'd be interesting to see how that happens, especially if the contract does extend. I don't see us continuing that interest, but it's good to know what the situation is. And talking about a central striker, like you just mentioned, apparently Ten Hag, and I would be if I was manager, is a little bit concerned with Martial's fitness and with Ronaldo's future kind of in the balance. We don't know what's going to happen with it. It's not going to be a long future, I assume, in Manchester United. Do you think that United could make a move for a striker in January? And do you believe the stories that the club are waiting to kind of see where things are at before they decide to move in the January transfer market?
Yes, the message I'm receiving from my sources is always the same, that Manchester United will be focused on the summer market more than on January market. So the idea is to invest in the summer, not in January. But it's true that Erik ten Hag would love the club to be ready in case there would be an opportunity in January. I think the World Cup will be the key moment, because in the World Cup, maybe there could be new opportunities on the market. Something could change for some players. And so we have to see what happens during the World Cup. I always mention a player that I really like, because it could be the typical opportunity, like Jonathan David, who's doing great with Lille. He's the best goal scorer in Ligue 1. He's always scoring goals in Ligue 1, and he's doing great. And so he could be the typical opportunity. I don't know if for Man United or any other club, but he's doing great. And so you can have this kind of opportunities in January, or if Man United will decide to wait and then move on a striker in the summer. I think the timing will be really important for Man United, honestly, because Last summer, last August, July, and June was complicated to find a striker at Manchester United level. And next summer, there will be many clubs on the market for a center striker, because there will be clubs from Spain, probably Real Madrid, probably Atletico Madrid, of course, clubs from England. Let's see how many big clubs in England will move for a striker, but Bayern are looking for number 9 too. In Italy, AC Milan will have to find a new striker because of Ibrahimovic's age. So there are many clubs on the market for a striker. And so I think for Man United it will be really important to move in January. But as of now, the message from the club is they're focusing on the summer. Erik ten Hag wants the club to be ready in case there will be an opportunity in January. So let's see what happens in the World Cup.
Exactly. It feels like there's not enough strikers about at the moment for what people need. But with Jonathan David that you just mentioned there, is that someone that Manchester United are monitoring? I know he's been a name that's been out there from the fans who have been looking at him, but is that someone that Man United are monitoring?
Oh, at the moment they had some scouts, but not now. It's something that happened like with Ralf Rangnick too as interim coach, and with the scouting department. It was like February, March, they were following the player, and then this summer they decided to go for different strategy. As we know, they decided to go strong on Anthony in attacking positions, but at the same point, Jonathan David is a player that they know very well. I'm curious to see what happens at the World Cup, because the World Cup is a big opportunity for him with Canada to show his skills again, to maybe score more goals, because with Lille is always scoring goals. So it's a big opportunity for him on international stage to show his qualities, his skills. And so he's a player that Manchester United knows so well, but I think they want to make sure they go for the right striker, because as you mentioned, with Cristiano Ronaldo situation, it is not easy. And with Anthony Martial having many physical problems, they have to find the striker, not a striker, but the striker they need for the world project for Erik ten Hag. And so this is why they want to take some time, and probably in the summer will be easier to find a striker at Manchester United level.
Yeah, it's an important decision, 100%. And Gakpo is another name that we spoke about a lot. I mean, he is a good option for Manchester United. I mean, Ten Hag has wanted him in the summer, and Plettigo, a German journalist, said last week that Gakpo wanted a bigger club than Leeds or Southampton, who they've been linked to in summer, and again for January. Are United prepared to maybe miss out on Gakpo then? Because it does seem like clubs are interested in him. But would we also maybe move for him in January? Because it doesn't seem like maybe January is an option for us.
So honestly, on Gakpo, what I'm told is that the relationship between the agents of Gakpo, they are the same agents of Erik ten Hag, and Manchester United is still great. It's an excellent relationship, and this is something important in this story, because Manchester United had direct contacts with the agents of Gakpo for the whole summer. It was July, it was August. Then they decided to go for Anthony, but Gakpo was always a name discussed internally in Manchester United, appreciated by Erik ten Hag. I think now in September, in October, he's doing something special. So many of these clubs that were following Gakpo, but maybe were not so convinced to spend 40-45 million euros. Now they understand that he's a player worth big money, because he's doing fantastic with PSV Eindhoven. So the feeling internally at Manchester United is that there will be a lot of competition on this player, a lot of competition in England, in Spain, in other countries, because Gakpo is appreciated by many, many clubs. It's true that Leeds wanted to complete the deal on deadline day. It was almost done. Then the deal collapsed on player side, but it was almost done for Cody Gakpo to join Leeds. And then they wanted to repeat the negotiations and to continue and follow the negotiations for January. But Gakpo now is focused on different opportunities. And so this is why the situation is absolutely open. As of today, there is no negotiation between PSV and Manchester United. So it's only about the relationship with the agents and some contacts with the agents. We have to see if Man United in January will decide to move or not, because it's also my feeling that I think in January something will happen around Gakpo. Some clubs will try again. Some clubs will make official bids to PSV, will try to tempt the player. And so if Man United really want Gakpo, it will be time to move in January.
Yeah, and that's another one with the World Cup coming up, someone to keep an eye on as well. The World Cup is going to be very important. And then obviously we're looking at strikers, looking at forward players, and João Felix, there's been some news about him potentially being unhappy at Atletico and maybe wanting a move. Obviously, it's a player that's going to cost a lot of money. Like I'm aware of that. I think he's a very, very good player, but just not even in terms of Manchester United. Well, in the terms of Manchester United, because I think it's a player that a lot of us appreciate. But is a move on the cards for João Felix?
Honestly, the answer on Atletico Madrid side is it's true that the situation is not easy between João Felix and Atletico Madrid. First point is important to mention that he's not a starter for Diego Simeone, and so this is a problem when you have a player like João Felix and he's not playing. This is always a problem. But the answer on Atletico Madrid side is that they want the release clause, 350 million euros. They have no intention to negotiate. They think that João Felix will be one of the best players in the world in the next few years, so they want to protect the player. They want to continue with João Felix as an important player for their project. So, it's not an easy situation. I think in January it will be difficult to move a player like Joe Felix. We have to see what happens in the summer, if the situation will continue like this with between Diego Simeone and Joe Felix or not. So it's important to see how the season will go for Joe Felix with Simeone. As of now, but about Manchester United, we have rumors, because the only thing that I'm told that was between Manchester United and Joe Felix is that, you remember, during that crazy week during August, it was the second or third week of August, when Manchester United tried to call many agents, many players, and many players were offered to Manchester United. That was the week of Adrien Rabiot, Marco Arnautovic, with many crazy names around Manchester United. Joe Felix is one of the players they were approaching. So they tried to understand how is the situation around Joe Felix, but was never a negotiation, because for Atletico Madrid it was impossible to negotiate for Joao. So nothing happened between Atletico Madrid and Man United. Nothing happened also with the agents. It was not a negotiation. They were just approaching the agents to try to understand the situation and nothing else. So nothing concrete, and as of now, there is nothing concrete. We have to see, I think, at the end of the season, how it will end up between Joe Felix and Atletico Madrid. Because as of today, they say we want 350 million euros.
Things can change. Hopefully in the summer, maybe things will, but I'm not too confident on that. But moving on to, I mean, how many times we spoke about this player, Frankie de Jong, but he's not. I mean, he started in El Clasico. I think he did.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure he started in El Clasico.
Yes.
But he's not really been getting that much game time for Barcelona, or not the game time a player like Frankie de Jong would expect anyway, a player of his quality. And it looks like maybe Barcelona might still want to move him out. Is that a deal that United potentially would still be interested in, or did the Casemiro deal kind of end that race for de Jong?
I think the interest will be there. For Manchester United, same for Chelsea and many other clubs, because Frankie de Jong is a fantastic player. And the truth is that during the summer, as he mentioned many times, he didn't want to move. He wanted to stay at Barcelona, but the interest was there for the 3 months by Manchester United. And I think the interest is still there, because he's a player that Erik ten Hag loves and many clubs love. Because as I always say, we always mention Manchester United for Frankie de Jong, but it's the truth that also Chelsea were prepared to spend big money on Frankie de Jong. They were prepared to invest the same amount of money offered by Manchester United and a higher salary than Manchester United. So Chelsea were there, Manchester United were there, and I'm sure the interest will be there also for the next months. But as of today, they are not negotiating, because they know that on Frankie's side, he wants to continue at Barcelona. He wants to fight for his place at Barcelona. He wants to win with Barcelona. So the only way to change the Frankie de Jong story is Frankie to say, okay, I want to go. Until Frankie doesn't say this, it's impossible for them to negotiate with Frankie, with his agents, or with Barcelona, because it makes no sense. Frankie wants to continue there. If he will change his mind, and we are still in October, so let's see what happens maybe in the second part of the season. I don't think Frankie de Jong is a player for January market, but let's see what happens in the second part of the season. And if some club will move, it will be interesting to see Frankie position.
I don't know if we'd win the race against Chelsea anyway, to be honest with you, with their new owners in charge. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. And with David De Gea, I mean, we could have done with him instead of Fred in the game yesterday, I tell you that. But with David De Gea, he wants a new contract. He's spoken out about that in the press. I mean, it's quite obvious that he wants to continue with his career with Manchester United. How close are Manchester United to doing that? Or do you think they'll wait maybe to the summer to kind of sort out the contract situations?
I think it will take some time before they decide on David De Gea and other contracts too, because he's waiting. His message is pretty clear. He wants to stay, as you mentioned. He was very clear on the press, and also his agents discussing with Manchester United, having some contacts with Manchester United, were very open to discuss on a new deal, to extend the contract, and to have a future at Manchester United. It's up to Man United now, and it's up to Erik ten Hag too, because Manchester United board want to decide together with Erik ten Hag on this one. They know how important is the goalkeeper role for present and future, for the ideas of Erik ten Hag. So it's up to the manager too. I think during the World Cup will be an important moment to decide internally on many contract situations. David De Gea, but also Marcus Rashford, same with Luke Shaw, Diogo Dalot. There are many things to discuss internally at Manchester United. And so there will be something together with Erik ten Hag to decide on this kind of situations. But David De Gea is ready. David De Gea is ready. He's not negotiating with any other club at the moment, because he's giving priority to Manchester United. And so it's up to the club. It's an opportunity for them to decide soon. But of course, they have an option, and this is why they feel protected. This is why they don't feel in a hurry to extend the contracts, because they have this option for Rashford, for Dalot, and same for David De Gea. But David would love to have a longer contract with Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? I think a lot of fans would want him to continue. Some fans think it's time to get maybe a more modern style goalkeeper in. And there's been There's been a lot of Man United fans talking about the prospects of Costa from Porto. Would he be maybe open to a move soon from Porto if a club was to come in for him like Manchester United?
No, I think the player would be open because it's normal to be tempted by this kind of clubs. But it's important to see what Manchester United will decide to do. At the moment, there are no negotiations from what I'm told. I also saw these links, but I'm told that there is still nothing serious or advanced. But I'm sure that on player side, not just him, but many other players are really tempted by Manchester United. That is important to mention. It's not an easy moment for the project. It's a new project. And as we always mention here, I love to mention that when it's about Erik ten Hag, it takes time. It takes time. So give him some time. It's not a short-term project. It's a long-term project with a manager who is always thinking long-term. And so it's important to protect his ideas. But at the same point, on player side, many of them are tempted, but it's up to Man United. And as I mentioned, for January market, the situation is still really quiet, really calm. And this is why at the moment there is nothing imminent. Also about goalkeepers, there are many links to, I don't know, Oblak or many others. But as of today, there are no advanced negotiations. This is why also David De Gea is still hoping to extend his contract.
Yeah, especially with the goalkeeper situation, I don't think it's something that would be decided very quickly. It'd definitely be a long process potentially over the summer with that one. So we'll have to wait and see. But with a player that we've already got that we had a lot of hopes for, which is Donny van de Beek, I mean, he could have had game time as of late, but he's been injured and we don't really know what the injury really is. I think we know it's a muscle injury, but he's been unavailable to play for over 2 months now. And this is a time where he could have got a lot of game time. How is it looking for Donny van de Beek with only 3 weeks now to the World Cup? He's still not come back from injury. With the January transfer window, do you think that is a player that we might see go out on loan or potentially make a move?
Honestly, I think the situation is really open for Donny van de Beek. I'm not sure that he's staying at Manchester United till the end of the season because it depends on the opportunities. As you mentioned, his injury, and so it's difficult now to discuss about game time because he wants to play. It's important for him to play, to show his skills finally with a manager like Erik ten Hag who trusts him. But being injured is a big problem, of course, in this moment. So I can tell you that Manchester United received some approaches at the end of the market in August by English clubs asking about Donny. And the answer was very clear. They said, no, Donny is staying here. So they decided to keep Donny and to consider Donny as an important part of the team. Let's see what happens in January because he wants to play. So it's important to clarify the situation, I think, during the World Cup, November, December, to discuss with Donny to see if he will be fit, how the situation will look together with Erik ten Hag, and then to decide, because it makes no sense for Donny van de Beek to do one more season and never being a starter, never playing. So for him, it's really important to play, but it's also important, of course, to be fit. And this is why the situation is open. I would keep it open till the end of January because it really depends on his physical conditions and on Erik ten Hag. I think they will decide together, and I would keep the situation open also for other clubs for a new loan, possibly.
Is it a recurring injury for him? Is it the same thing? Do you know? That keeps happening?
Yes. I'm told that he's recovering. And he's trying his best to be fit as soon as possible. I hope he will be back before the World Cup because it's important for him to have some game time and then in 2023 to be 100% part of the team. But it depends on the physical conditions and, of course, on the market situation. Everything is quiet. But at the end of August, Manchester United were really clear. And they said no intention to let him go.
Okay, well, that's someone we'll have to keep an eye out on then, because we don't really know how Ten Hag's going to handle him because he has been injured so much. But with Dalot, he's spoken to the MEN saying that he's still not spoken to Manchester United about a new contract, but he would like to sign one. Is there anything about the right-back situation? I mean, we need another right-back regardless of how well Dalot's doing because Wan-Bissaka seems to be completely frozen out. So do you think that United will be looking for a right-back and also looking to extend Dalot's contract as well?
Yes, I think they will go for a right back, not because they're not happy with Dalot. He's doing great, and I'm sure that Dalot is part of the project, but because they want to create some competition. Manchester United are doing many competitions, and so it's normal to have many players in different positions, and this is why they're working on some right backs. It depends on Wan-Bissaka. It's important to see what happens with Wan-Bissaka because also at the end of August, Erik ten Hag, from what I'm told, was absolutely keen on bringing in Serginho Dest on loan from Barcelona and selling Wan-Bissaka, but it didn't happen. They didn't receive the right proposal for Wan-Bissaka. So let's see if in January the Wan-Bissaka situation will change and Man United will go for another right back. But I feel that Diogo Dalot will be the starter. I feel that Diogo Dalot will be an important part of the project, and now it's up to Man United to extend this contract. I'm told that as of today, there are still no advanced negotiations with Dalot to prepare a new deal. So let's see what Man United will decide to do. They have this option. This is why, again, they feel protected. But it's also true that Barcelona sent their scouts to monitor Diogo Dalot. They have an interest. It happened also with Borussia Dortmund, with Atletico Madrid in the last 2 years. They tried to sign Diogo Dalot, but both Manchester United and Diogo Dalot decided to continue together. So it's now up to the club.
Yeah, I hope he's I think he will stay, but he's definitely someone that I would want part of the team. And quickly, last question before you go. With the January transfer window coming up, Chelsea and a couple other Premier League clubs are looking at transfers in January. Barcelona have even mentioned potentially transfers in January. What are your thoughts about the January transfer window in general? Because it is quite a unique situation with the World Cup.
Yes.
And do you expect it to be busier than usual?
I think yes. I think it will be really busy. My feeling is that it will be really busy. The World Cup is always giving new ideas to directors, new ideas to agents, and so it's normal to have a lot of activities around the World Cup and around the market. And so I think it will be really busy. And this is why I always mention the opportunities, because during the World Cup we always have new names, new ideas, new possibilities. And this is why for Man United the focus is on summer transfer window, but it could be something interesting to see what happens with the opportunities on the market. And I'm sure that Erik ten Hag wants the club to be ready in case there will be a new name maybe on the market, a new idea. And so I think it will be a really, really busy market in general for many clubs in Italy, in Spain, in England, and also in other countries.
Well, let's hope you're right, and let's hope Manchester United are part of it. Thank you, Fabrizio, for coming on, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you as always. Thank you for the invitation, and see you soon. Thank you.
See you soon. Bye. Well, guys, that was Fabrizio Romano on the United stand. I don't know why this overlay isn't working. I've just tried to switch it on there, but hopefully, here we go. Ryan's sorted me out there, but the overlay is now gone, so we can fully focus on what Romano was just saying. And I think there was some really interesting points during that interview that we can definitely delve right into. I think striker is 100% something Erik ten Hag is going to be looking at. We know that I think all of us have come to terms with Martial has got qualities that he can definitely give us. We've seen it at the start of this season, and we've seen that Erik ten Hag really, really does rate Martial. But unfortunately, he just can't stop getting injured. So it is something we need to move for. Cristiano Ronaldo potentially might move in January, might move in summer. It's going to be one of the two. I don't think he's going to be here for longer than the season maximum. So we need to be looking for someone. And as Romano said, the person that they go and get has to be the number 9. I did want to ask him about Ivan Toney, but we just ran out of time with the questions that we had. But I definitely think he's someone that if United bid well enough, we could easily get him out of Brentford. I definitely think that could happen. He'd want to be moving to a club that's playing in Europe, not quite Champions League, but we are playing in Europe. And Brentford kind of understand their position, the fact that they would get quite a bit of money for Ivan Toney. So I do think that there is something there with that we could be looking at. Gakpo is is a player that I've rated for a long time, that you guys also rate in the comments. I've seen you talking about him, and he's such a good option. But the frustrating thing is what always happens with Man United, which is so frustrating, is that we're in for a player. We all like a player. We're all excited about potentially signing a player, and United don't move quick enough. And then next thing you know, other teams are interested. The price just increases, and potentially we miss out or end up paying a stupid price. And I think this could be the case with Gakpo, which is really, really unfortunate. I think we were linked to Gakpo for around 30 million in the summer. And I was saying, get him and Anthony, just get it done, because Gakpo is a player that can play at number 9. He could have been developing this time, making his way into Erik ten Hag's team, especially with Martial being injured. He's definitely a good option to have. But we didn't do that. We waited. And we know Leeds and Southampton are interested. No disrespect to them, but they're not competition for us. But he continues the way he is. Most goal contributions in Europe, playing very, very well for PSV. Young talent, got lots of potential. Also taking that into the World Cup because he's been getting game time as well for his country. That could lead to other clubs being interested, clubs that could potentially offer Champions League football, clubs that are going to offer a better package than us, clubs that haven't spent the money that Manchester United have spent. Well, probably have spent the money that we've spent in the summer, but clubs that are maybe a bit more ambitious than us and willing to spend money in January. Romano said himself that Gakpo is something that could definitely happen in January, is a move that is right up there to happen in January. So I really do think that Manchester United should be looking at this deal and should be involved. And the fact he has the same agents as Erik ten Hag as well, I mean, this is a deal that we could easily get done very, very quickly in January if we just offer the right sum to PSV. It's probably going to be more than what we're linked to in the summer because we didn't make our move. But sometimes you've just got to cut your losses and go for a player when they are the right fit. And I definitely think he's someone that could fit in at Manchester United. And I've seen a lot of you in the chat saying bring João Felix, and it's so weird. And Ladio said same agent. What? Yeah, they have the same agent, Erik ten Hag and Gakpo. What Romano was saying, so it's something that could definitely be done. But with João Felix, honestly, my opinion on this, I don't know if you guys follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I've tweeted about João Felix quite a lot, and I really, really rate this player. I know there's a split opinion on him. Some people think that he doesn't provide enough goals. Some people think he wouldn't be suited to the Premier League. My personal opinion on this is that he's playing in a very, very, very defensive team, barely gets any chances in that team, has to put in unreal amount of work just to get himself a chance. If you think Manchester United is a graveyard shift, Atletico Madrid is a graveyard shift. He's a young talent with so much potential. And before we were even linked to him, I went to the Atletico game when we played them in the Champions League when we had Ralph Rangnick in charge at the Wanda Metropolitan, and I went there and to watch the game. It was where Elanga scored to equalise it 1-1, and João Felix in that game, I already knew he was a good player, but I was honestly gobsmacked at the lack of chances he got, but the amount of work he put in, but also just the skill of the player. He was constantly doing our defenders. He was running our team ragged. He was brilliant. And then I thought, you know what, could be a one-off. I walked away from that game like, wow, he was so good. And then the game at Old Trafford as well, he was unbelievable as well. Maybe not quite as good as the first leg, because I thought in the first leg he was brilliant, but he still was someone that I thought, God, if you just put him in an attacking team, he'd be so, so, so good. And I think you'd see a completely different side to him. If you put him in our team, I genuinely think he would get goals, and I think he would be a star player. He's got that much potential. So I honestly think he's a brilliant, brilliant young player. I know a lot of people maybe don't see that because a lot of people look at stats nowadays, and stats don't always show the full story. He's playing in a defensive team where he gets lack of chances, not playing as much minutes as he would like to. I think there's definitely a star there with him, and I think when he moves eventually, because he's going to move from Atletico, whether it is, I'd love him to come to Manchester United. I don't know if it's feasible, especially with what Atletico are going to want money-wise for him. But when he does eventually move, I definitely think people will realise how good this player is. And someone just said that header against Maguire. It's like Felix should never be winning that header. It's a mistake from Maguire, don't get me wrong, but he's got more attributes to his game than what people imagine, I think. And I don't think he's too lightweight for the Premier League. I think he'd be brilliant in the Premier League. But yeah. Someone said we're an attacking team, laughing face. We're not creating enough chances as we should be, absolutely not. But we're definitely on course to be a more attacking team than Atletico, who were extremely, extremely defensive. Felix is too expensive. Yeah, right now he does want to move, and the fact that Manchester United did kind of inquire about him in the summer while Erik ten Hag was manager is a promising sign, because it looks like maybe that might be one that Erik ten Hag does have his eye on and potentially does like. The situation with him is his release clause is 350 million. And as Romano just said there, that's what currently Atletico would want for him. But if this player keeps pushing a move, Diogo Simeone keeps continuing to bench him and things don't work out, you could always see a different story. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's definitely not going to be something in January, but in the future, 100% is someone that I think we should be moving for personally. I think he's brilliant. And then moving on to when we talked about De Jong, and get your opinions in on this. We talked about Jude Bellingham last time we were on, so I didn't ask about him again because we know the situation with Jude Bellingham. He's going to move in the summer, 100% going to move in the summer. It's just which club proposes the best offer and he feels like is the best opportunity for him. That club is going to have Champions League football. Get in the comments whether you think that we're going to have that, because I was thinking maybe we could get fourth, but now I'm seeing Chelsea under Potter and the way things are shaping up in the league. I know it's early days, but I think we might miss out on that, to be honest. I think it would be very, very lucky to get fourth. So I don't know if that'd be on the cards, but it would have to be on the cards, Champions League football, to even look at a De Jong/Bellingham type of player. And this is what I wanted to get your comments on, guys. I mean, Eriksen and Bruno have been playing predominantly with Casemiro or McTominay coming in as a holder. But when one of them gets injured, we are screwed. We are screwed. We saw it yesterday with Fred. I mean, personally, I would have played McTominay, but he was obviously banned from his yellow cards. But if we were maybe rotating Eriksen and Bruno, in that role, and we had a Frankie de Jong or a Jude Bellingham, yesterday would never have happened. And it's the exact type of midfielder we need. Personally, for me, I've gone off the prospect of de Jong because of how much he's kind of said he doesn't want to come. For me, that when a player continuously says, I was calm in the summer, I never wanted to leave, never wanted to go anywhere else, that's fair enough, because you'd want that a player at Manchester United to be like that as well. We'd all want that. But for me, I've just completely gone off the situation and gone off him. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant player. And if he came to us, I know we'd have a brilliant player on our hands. But the amount of times he's kind of shut us down has made me not really as interested in him personally. And I think, like Romano was saying, if he does decide to leave, Chelsea are going to come in all guns blazing. United will as well, because Eric Ten Hag will be pushing them, because we know he adores his player. God, I'm just licking the mic there, because he adores his player. But I'd much prefer to go for a Jude Bellingham, and especially when I think Bellingham is more physical. Like, de Jong can take the ball off the back four brilliantly, and I think he's in that Fred position that Fred was playing yesterday horrendously. Frankie de Jong would be leaps ahead of him. I think he'd be a brilliant player for us, but I think Bellingham could be that, and maybe a little bit more physical, maybe a little bit more suited to the Premier League. I still think de Jong would be brilliant in the Premier League, don't get me wrong, but if I had to pick between the two, I would go with Bellingham. Get in the comments down below, who would you pick if you had to pick between Bellingham, de Jong? I mean, other fans would be looking at us right now like laughing at us, because like the likelihood is 95% chance we won't get either, just because we're not as good as other clubs that are going to be competing for these players. If you want the top players, you've got to be in a top position nowadays, and we're not in that. Hopefully you can strive for that, but if you could get one, get in the comments who you'd go for. And a lot of people are already saying Bellingham will go to Madrid. I don't think he will, I think British players like to come back to the Premier League. We know Jadon Sancho, I mean, it's a different story, Jadon Sancho. Bellingham's maybe a bigger prospect, but I think he would want to come to the Premier League personally. I think he will move to the Premier League. We'll just see who goes in for him. I think everyone will be going in for him, but let's see who gets him. On the De Gea situation, we know De Gea wants to continue as goalkeeper. We know it's not a decision that's going to be taken lightly. If we go for a goalkeeper, it's going to be a goalkeeper for the course of the Eric Ten Hag era, I would assume. Like, it's going to be a goalkeeper that lasts us a while, so it needs to be the right one. So with that, I think that'll be something that's decided in the summer. I agree with you guys in the comments when you were saying Costa. I think he'd be a perfect player to bring in. Personally, for me, right, people call me a De Gea hater all the time, and it's not that I'm a De Gea hater. I rate him. I think he's a brilliant shot stopper. I think he's done brilliant stuff for us. But if we want to play Eric Ten Hag possession-based football, he's not, unless he drastically improves, he's just not the player to do that. We saw it yesterday at Newcastle. His distribution was awful. He doesn't feel comfortable passing the ball out from the back. At Everton, he was a lot better, but then it reverted back to the way it was yesterday, when we easily could have conceded off the way he was passing out from the back. We were lucky it wasn't a more dangerous team. So I don't know. With that one, I think it's someone that it's something we'll have to weigh up in the summer and see what Eric Ten Hag wants at the end of the day. But I think Costa is definitely a player that we should be in for 100%. He does look like a good player. And there's people in the comments saying, do you understand where I'm coming from? Exactly. You've got to understand that there is weaknesses and strengths to people's games. It's what you see more important, is the thing as well. And then on Dallow's contract extension, Dallow will, I'm assuming he will extend his contract. I mean, he's got to extend his contract because he doesn't want to go anywhere else. Man United are going to want to keep him. It's quite an easy thing to look at. But the January transfer window is going to be extremely, extremely interesting. And, forgot about the fact we talked about LEAO as well. And LEAO, we're not getting LEAO. I had to ask that question because of the news that's been going around. We're not getting LEAO. It's going to be way too expensive. We spent way too much money on wingers. That's something you might see Chelsea end up doing. We won't go for him. I think he's a brilliant player with a lot of potential. I do think he's very, very good, but we're not going to go for him. Jude Bellingham and Felix, not a chance. Get more realistic players through proper scouting. Neves, Tielemans and Gakpo. Tony is more likely. I think we can strive for brilliant players, but I understand what you're saying. I think Tony would be brilliant. I think Gakpo would be good. Neves is decent. Tielemans, I really was in favour of us of getting, but I don't know, this season I've not really seen as much of a player in him. And I just think, like, looking at the way they've been playing this season, their midfield needs to be a lot stronger. So I'm not sure. I still think Tielemans would be a good enough player to play for us at this moment in time, 100%. Massive upgrade on Fred, massive upgrade on certain players that we do have. But I'd rather us go for someone that is going to be the best of the best, if you know what I mean. And there's someone that has the potential to do that. Maignan from AC Milan, a winner and Ten Hag type goalkeeper, another player that Maignan is unbelievable, but we won't get him, I don't think, because of how expensive that would be. I feel like he's just signed I think he signed last year for them, and I think he's got a few years, quite a lot left on his contract when I was looking him up a couple of weeks ago. So I don't think that's one that we'd have to spend silly money on it. And we've got players like strikers, we've got players like midfielders that we have to go and get as well. So we'll have to see. Do you think Mbappe will come to the Premier League, maybe Chelsea or Man U if they played it right? Potentially one day, but his wages are just stupid, aren't they? Realism is non-existent with some fans. We cannot afford LEAO, Bellingham, Osimhen, no player for 100 mil. I definitely think Jude Bellingham is one that we'll be looking at 100%. Maddison for Bruno, for sure, and De Jong. No, Maddison's been brilliant, but Bruno is going to come good again. He's not having his best performances at the moment, but I think he's an important part of our team, 100%. So there's a lot of things that we need to be looking at. But for me personally, striker, midfielder, right back are so important. Maybe look at a keeper in the summer, but they are important positions. We need someone that's going to be an ice cold striker that is going to kill teams off. Ronaldo, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's really to blame at the moment. I think we definitely could get an improvement, and I'm just saying at the moment we could maybe have an improvement there. But I don't think it's Ronaldo's fault that we're not scoring goals. Absolutely not. I think if he gets that header at the back post yesterday that Rashford had, I think it's in the back of the net. I think if we're providing more crosses from fullbacks and more crosses from wingers, he's getting more goals. I think he's suffering from the graveyard shift that we've had multiple times at Manchester United. And yeah, I think midfielder is a necessity. If we had bought another midfielder in the summer, we wouldn't have had that problem yesterday where we lost the game because Fred was so poor. I'm not blaming it all on Fred, but I generally think if Eriksen plays or we have a better midfielder, we could have won that game. He was that bad. And right back, Diogo Dalot's got no competition, and if he gets injured, we're screwed. So they're the three positions we need to be going for. And like Romano said, with the January transfer window opening up after the World Cup, it's going to be so busy. And I think there could be players that come through the World Cup that you can't afford not to go and get and could change different teams' seasons. And it's like a fresh start to the season and getting like a second chance at it. Some teams are going to suffer, some teams are going to massively excel. It's going to be a very weird and interesting season. Bruno is a big part of our attacking problem. He's playing too far forward. I massively agree with that. I think he needs to 100% drop deep, but I don't know if that's manager instruction. And if it is manager instruction, then you've got to be looking at the manager as well. Donny potentially could be going out on loan in January, but he wants to play. Ten Hag wants to keep him. Maybe if he gets fit, we'll see him come into that team. If we would have had Donny van der Beek yesterday fit, I guarantee he would have played instead of Fred after Fred's performance against Ammonia. He would have, and he would have done a better job. So we've got players there. We need them to get fit, but we also need some improvements and reinforcements as well. This Manchester United team is far from the finished article. There's so many. We need to spend a lot more money. We need players to develop. It's the start of a project, and that's why results like yesterday, the Newcastle game, they are going to happen. No matter how fuming I was yesterday, and if you would have watched my match vlog, you would have seen how annoyed I was. No matter how annoyed I was, not only at the referee but the team as a whole. Like, we should have scored goals. We should have been less naive to Newcastle's approach to the game, the time wasting, etc. But this team is right at the start of a rebuild. Ten Hag has got so much to do. We've got many of these shows. We've got many transfer windows to happen before we get back to the top, or even challenging for the top. I think top 4 this season would be a big achievement with this team. And I think, don't get me wrong, we've got some brilliant players that can develop, and we've got some players that we don't need some places we don't need reinforcements in, but there's a lot of integral places on that pitch that we need reinforcements. We need players to develop, and we need players not to be injured as well. Martial and Donny van der Beek being injured, it all kind of adds up along the season, because if we have had Donny yesterday, could have been a different outcome. If we had Martial, could have been a different outcome. These are players that are important players to the squad. It, like Erik ten Hag said, it is a squad game. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But there's a long way to go. Results like this are going to happen. They're going to come. And this is what happens when you've not got that killer instinct yet as a team, and you have areas that are very, very fragile that can be kind of broken quite quickly and kind of dishevel the team, which is what happened yesterday. I think Eriksen drops out that team and we look like a different team. So there's going to be a lot of time before we get to that point. How annoying it is, results like that are going to happen, but January transfer window, summer transfer windows, they need to be used to help Erik ten Hag quicker and get this process moving along quicker. So it's got to happen. Manchester United board, whether they'll do it, as Romano reinforced, they are going to be looking at summer. They're going to sell us some kind of story about how much money they spent in January and they're going to probably try and say that there's not the right option out there for us. They're going to feed us everything to try and not spend money in this January transfer window, because we, like, despite of how well off the club is, they're not in a good financial situation, the owners of this club, and they do not want to be spending money. They did not want to spend the 80 million on Anthony. They did it because they had to, because the fans pressured them into it, and Erik ten Hag was pressuring them as well. And it's a new manager. I mean, when this manager's been in for a year, I doubt he's going to get the support he got this summer, and even that would have to be forced. So this ownership, and the fans know what this club needs. It needs money spent in January. It needs money spent in summer. Whether the board follow that through, we know what's happened multiple times before, and it's just unfortunate, because you can see the prospects there. You can see the likes of Gakpo, Ivan Toney, Jude Bellingham, like all these players. I'm not saying that we're front runners to get Jude Bellingham, but we should definitely be trying to get in the race if we can get Champions League football, 100%. So we've got to be in for these players. We've got to be battling. We've got to be getting reinforcements in January, because do you know what? This could be the difference. This could be the difference, right? We sign one or two players in January that secure us top four. We secure top four, we're in the race for Bellingham. That's a potential. And it has a knock-on effect. This is like, we're not going to be able to attract decent players in summer. I'm not just on about Bellingham, but decent players in summer if we don't have Champions League football. To get Champions League football, we need to either finish fourth or win the Europa League. So to do that, we need to be in a better position than we are now. To do that, we have to reinvest in January. So we've already, God knows what we'd have been like this season if we hadn't spent the money we did, that eventually got pressured into in the summer. Because I think Anthony Martinez, Eriksen, Casemiro, they've made a huge difference, and we're still not where we need to be. So I think money definitely needs to be spent in January. I think the World Cup is going to put a lot of pressure maybe on the Glazers to get the hand out of the pocket in January and make some moves, especially if other clubs do, as what Romano said is probably going to happen. There's going to be a lot more movement in this January. And if teams like Chelsea, Spurs, teams that are in and around us sign players in January, that puts massive pressure on United to do that, because they're teams that we're competing with for Champions League football, which is vital at this moment in time. Absolutely vital. You can't attract the brilliant players unless you have Champions League football. And I'm not saying we need to always get players that are here. You can get players and develop them, but that's not really been happening for us for a long time. So Champions League football is a must. And yeah, the World Cup's going to be very, very interesting. Very interesting. And as Romano said, Jonathan David playing for Canada is one to look out for. He said we know he's been scoring a lot of goals in League One. He's a player that a lot of you guys have mentioned before. I'm not 100% convinced because of the status of League One. But we'll have to wait and see. If he has a very good World Cup, that could be a player that United look at as well. But thank you, everyone, for watching the interview. Make sure you like and subscribe, and get in your comments down below as well. It's who you think Manchester United should sign in January. Would you extend Hayes' contract? Would you extend Dallow's contract? Who should we be targeting? And yeah, what would you go for striker, midfielder? Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.